All right. Kurt, you were saying that there's a conversation you had with a fellow that sort of provided the seed for Mother Night?
Yeah, well, I was a freelance writer and trying to think up good ideas, to make money. And I thought it was time to write a spy story. There's a lot of people writing spy stories. And so at a cocktail party there on Cape Cod where I was living, I ran into a guy who'd been very high in naval intelligence. And he'd been in on hands-on intelligence. There'd been all these spy stories where the good guys are easily fool the enemy. And he said, what you're looking for in a recruit of a spy is an unwell person. I'm sorry.
That's why I chose to do it.
And he said that you understand from the beginning that this guy can survive only if he serves the enemy very well.
You have to write down your memoirs for the Haifa Institute for the Documentation of War Criminals. You have 3 weeks to complete your memoirs before your trial begins.
By 1961, Kurt Vonnegut already had 2 published novels and countless short stories under his belt. But right before he would hit a major breakthrough with the novel Cat's Cradle, Vonnegut would also craft a tale inspired by this cocktail party conversation, as well as his World War II experience. A story with a clear moral, as well as a clear examination of the juxtaposition between absurdity and atrocity. A juxtaposition exemplified by the story's protagonist, Howard Campbell Jr., aka the most patriotic American in the Third Reich. At the start of the story, Howard is already spending his twilight years in an Israeli prison, typing his life account while waiting for his trial for his role in Nazi propaganda. A role that's not only ironic because he was an American who only happened to immigrate to Germany at a young age, but also because, in spite of still living in Germany at the dawn of World War II, he was completely apathetic to the nation's politics, and far more concerned of simply living a life as a successful writer married to a successful actress. But this apathy meets its end when he comes across a fellow American, an American who's not only a government agent, but who sets him straight on the direction the country is heading into and the role he would like for him to play.
So this fella knows there's a war coming. He figures America's going to be on one side, Germany's going to be on the other. So this American, who's been nothing but polite to the Nazis up to now, decides to pretend he's a Nazi himself. And he stays on in Germany once the war comes and gets to be a very useful American spy.
It was every playwright's secret dream to create the most challenging role I could imagine, and then play the part myself.
And as soon as Germany plays its role in World War II, Howard plays his own as a loyal Nazi broadcaster, and while technically working as an agent for the US Allied cause, it can't be understated how well he falls in line as a cog in the Nazi machine.
I listened to everything you said. Never missed a broadcast. All the ideals that make me proud of being a Nazi, they came not from Hitler, not from Goebbels, but from you. You alone kept me from concluding that Germany had gone insane.
But we all know how the Second World War ends, and with it, so does Howard's prominence. Not only losing his valued role as a spy, but also becoming a widower when he loses his wife in an air raid. And so the once proud agent of the Nazi cause in Germany now lives in exile in New York. A role that, painful as it is, he does play well, even when the reminders of his bygone association are plain as day.
That's a very famous name you have.
Pardon me?
You never heard of Howard W. Campbell Jr., broadcasting from Berlin?
From Berlin. Yes, I do remember now. It was a long time ago. I never listened to him, but I remember he was in the news. Those things fade.
You know of Auschwitz?
Yes, of course I know about Auschwitz.
That is where I spent my young womanhood. And my son, the doctor here, he spent his childhood.
But he can only remain in seclusion from his infamy for so long, and Howard befriending a fellow middle-aged loner soon opens him up to more company, from not only a pair of white supremacist devotees, but also from the love he once thought was lost. But what happens when the end of Campbell's seclusion also coincides with the beginning of him confronting the reality of his past, and Campbell's confrontation of his past coincides with Vonnegut's story confronting its mole, that regardless of the cause, regardless of his shame, and especially regardless of his insincerity towards his actions, the end result of what he pretended to be will be his entire legacy.
Well, how many people did know what I was really doing?
There were 3 of us.
Just 3?
That's plenty. It's probably too many.
3 people knew me for what I really was?
Everyone else knew you for what you were, too.
Wait a minute, how can you say that? What are you thinking? I'm a Nazi? I wasn't a Nazi.
Well, let me ask you something, Howard. What would you have done if Germany had won the war? Marched right up to your pal Goebbels and surrendered? Told him you were actually a patriotic American spy?
Yes, I might have. I might have marched right in there. I might have escaped. I don't know.
And the repercussions of an identity wrapped in unending ambiguity.
I will show you what to live for. I will show you a woman who dies for love.
No, Rizzy.
Or to say the least, ungratifying. Mother Night's journey from a 60s publication to a 90s production is the fascinating byproduct of a friendship between a documentary filmmaker turned screenwriter and an actor turned director. Or more accurately, what happens when said screenwriter also happens to be in the midst of making a documentary on Vonnegut, and the two hit it off so well that Vonnegut practically hands him Mother Night's film rights. Add to that, a director who already had a stellar acting resume, which just so happened to include a certain Rodney Dangerfield comedy that not only saw him shine alongside the comedy legend, but also was responsible for one of the funniest scenes in the entire film.
And you've got a major paper coming up on Kurt Vonnegut. You haven't even read any of the books.
I tried. I don't understand a word of it.
So how are you gonna write the paper then, huh?
Hi, I'm Kurt Vonnegut. I'm looking for Thornton Mellon.
Wanna come in?
Together, Keith Gordon and Robert Whitey were able to gather a cast that included Nick Nolte in the starring role, Alan Arkin as his supposed friend.
My wife died 4 years ago, and I had the choice of either coming to Greenwich Village and becoming a painter or blowing my brains out. So I flipped the coin, and here I am.
John Goodman as the Blue Fairy Godmother, and perhaps one of its most notable casting decisions, Cheryl Lee as Howard's wife, or Howard's wife's little sister who's pretending to be his wife. Altogether, the cast and crew bring to life an adaptation that often showcases its biggest strength in its fidelity to its source novel, as well as the delicate line of confronting the absurdity and atrocity that's at the thorough line of its story.
You're the only man I know who has a bad conscience about the war.
How do you know I have a bad conscience?
Are you familiar with my book, Christ Was Not a Jew? In it, I reproduce 50 famous paintings of Christ and point out that not one of them shows Jewish jaws or teeth.
Do you believe you're guilty of murdering 6 million Jews?
Absolutely not.
Oh, you were simply a soldier, were you, huh? Taking orders from higher-ups, is that right, Eichmann? Like any good soldier?
Campbell,
Yes.
about those 6 million,
Yes.
I don't need credit for all of them. I'm sure I could spare you a few.
I took several steps down the sidewalk when something happened. It was not guilt that froze me. I had taught myself never to feel guilt. It wasn't the fear of death. I had taught myself to think of death as a friend. It was not the thought of being unloved that froze me. I had taught myself to do without love. What froze me was the fact that I had absolutely no reason to move in any direction. I want to be tried for my crimes against humanity.
But in the end, the film's greatest act of justice to its source material is in stand-in by its ending,
Auf Wiedersehen.
where Howard fully understands that his relationship with humanity has grown so distant that the best gesture he can make is separating himself from mankind permanently.
May justice be served. I like the sound of that. They say that a hanging man hears glorious music. I wonder what it sounds like.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, an adaptation so remarkably faithful to its novel would result in its author openly approving of its existence.
I'm quite satisfied with what Hollywood has done with Slaughterhouse-Five and with Mother Night. No complaints at all.
However, years after the release of the novel and its adaptation, it is arguably the biggest compliment to Vonnegut's work, or bigger insult to our current day. How much the absurdity on page and screen does bear a resemblance to the here and now. And while mentioning the reality show president and Nazi saluting car salesman might be on the nose, what does need to be emphasized is how an era of talk radio popularized by Rush Limbaugh and a media landscape orchestrated by Rupert Murdoch have segued a society to a place where not only is dehumanization further accepted, but truth is valued less and less. And what is left in its place is a collective madness with various speakers. And whether they are failed writers, failed actors, failed comedians, or just simply failures, what they all have in common is when all is said and done, the only thing valued is attention, money, or whatever is worth exchanging in place of further social corruption serviced by a social media landscape that constantly rewards it. Because what else can be said about Alex Jones galvanizing his followers into harassing grieving parents who already lost their children in Sandy Hook, or Joe Rogan and the numerous times he's cozied up to said Nazi saluting car salesman, or whatever major person in power makes him feel special, added along with how at this point it's irrelevant mentioning the numerous internet personalities who don't seem to believe in anything other than using their platform to spread the same old propaganda. Add to that the byproducts of the Rupert Murdoch indoctrination complex who now hold government positions. When this is what our reality is surrounded by, the differences between said media figureheads and Howard Campbell begin to blur. And unlike Campbell, they don't even have the excuse of being covert double agents. And as much as I'd like to ignore the here and now, when all is said and done, and our present reality becomes a past reflection, what will these people say when asked about their past? Will they hold themselves accountable for their actions? Or will they take a page from Alex Jones's lawyer and claim that everything said and done was just a performance?
What is the intrigue? And then it's in the book that Wirtman says to Campbell, he says, well, you know, these guys are kind of schizophrenic. There's a kind of freedom that they get by play acting that they can't have in real life.